In today's episode, I interviewed a sweet friend about her struggle with suicide while going through a domestic violence situation. She shares what helped, what didn't, and her breakthrough moment when she realized she was breaking generational curses. This is a powerful one that you will not want to miss, and I would like to add there is a trigger warning. We are talking about both suicide and domestic violence. Welcome to the Suicide Prevention Podcast, where we make intervention easy. I'm your host, Dr. Ricky Turner, and I am a suicide intervention expert. Please take note, I am the thinky kind of doctor and not a medical professional, so please do not take anything in this podcast as medical advice. Now, let's talk to Nicole. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast today. If you don't mind, introduce yourself a little bit. This is my friend Nicole, but I want you to tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Nicole Hauser, and I have 2 kids. I'm a single mom. I've been a single mom most of their lives. I live near Houston, Texas, and I own a small business. I'm very involved in my community. I'm the PTO board president. I'm an athletic director for my son's football team, and I'm just really involved in the community.
All right. I have gotten to witness this a lot. And I don't know if the saying that if you need something done, find a busy person to do it. That's Nicole for you. She is always doing something, but always out there serving others, which is a lot of the reason that I wanted to talk to you on the podcast. As you know, the platform that I am building is built around other people helping each other out when we go through hard times. And I think it's probably an understatement for you that you have been through some hard times. And so whatever you're comfortable sharing, do you mind sharing a little bit about some of those low points in your life?
Yeah. So the main 2 were revolved around men, of course, and dealing with my codependency because of traumatic issues with my childhood. So the first one, I was married to my children's father, and we had a great relationship. And then he cheated and left me for one of my friends when I was 8 months pregnant and on bed rest. So that was a really interesting thing to navigate. Not only was I going through the loss of a relationship I had been in, I met him when I was 19, so I kind of grew up with him, but also navigating the fact that I then had a 4-year-old and a newborn that I had to try to figure out, what the heck I was going to do with my life. The day that my son turned a year old, I was laid off from HP. There was 500 people that were laid off, and I was one of them. So that was another challenge on top of that. I ended up working at a company that's how Ricky and I met. I was there for 10 years. It moved me down to Houston, where I met another man who was absolutely amazing and charming and handsome and loved me and worshiped me. And then 3 days before our wedding, he flipped a switch, and he was not the man I thought I was marrying. It turned out to be a very abusive relationship. Started out emotionally. It was financially abusive. And then it started getting physical, and it just continued to escalate. And he had been arrested multiple times, and I just continued taking him back because we love them and they're going to change, right? And it definitely brought me to a very, very low point in my life where I was considering suicide to get out of it.
Yeah. And what I don't think people realize is how common that is, especially in domestic violence situations. There's so much shame and stigma that comes into being somebody who experiences domestic violence. That it's like, I don't know. I have never been in that position, so it's hard for me to speak from that position. So hopefully you can put some color on that. But I can imagine being in that situation and feeling like I have no other options. I'm either going to be hurt by this person or possibly killed by this person, or I may be killed trying to get out, or maybe my kids would be better if, I don't know all the things that I would be thinking, but I know that is completely natural to be thinking those things.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those things where, because it's not all bad. That's part of it, is that there's a lot of really good stuff that goes along with the marriage. When you think, oh, he's better now, he's different, he's changed, he's woken up, my prayers have been answered. And then something sets him off and he's angry again, and it's just living in a war zone. There's definitely a lot of shame with the fact that that was my second failed marriage. I just kept giving him a chance, thinking he was going to change, and he would apologize, and it's just a lot to go through. And the main reason that I thought about killing myself was because I wanted the peace. I just wanted to feel that peace again. But luckily I was strong enough to let go, and I've found my peace again.
Yeah.
It's just not with him.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head with that. So many people, regardless of their reasons for thinking about suicide, it's overwhelming how many people will say, I just needed peace. I needed respite from the pain. I needed whatever, but it all kind of alludes to what you're saying with peace. I just in order to feel like I can escape this, that's where we turn. And now I do remember we talked quite a bit through this when you were going through this. And you were strong enough to reach out a few times, actually, and we were able to talk. What did other people, were there other people involved, or what helped you the most through that time?
So I reached out to you and another of my best friends who lives in Arkansas, who's gone through a really painful situation and was considering suicide as well. She actually lost her 2-year-old baby. So in a very tragic accident. So she had gone through that as well. But honestly, what helped me the most was you said something to me, because I kept repeating something like, I just feel like I'm screaming into the darkness and no one's listening. And you sent me flowers, and it said on the card something along the lines of, when you're screaming and no one's listening, just remember that I'm here. And just to know that I didn't have to reach out to you, but if I needed you, you would be there. And it was just one person to kind of remind you, hey, life's still worth living. This too shall pass. You know what I mean? And that you do have somebody in your corner, regardless of how lonely you feel.
Yeah. So audience, we did not script that. I had no idea what she was going to say, and I teared up a little bit. So what she didn't say is she has also sent me flowers when I was going through a really bad time. And so that's kind of our move. Well, thank you for saying that. I'm passionate about, when we look at somebody with a medical emergency or a medical issue, it's almost always, well, what can I do for them? Can I bring you food? Can I help you in some way? I'm here if you need me. Do you need to talk? Do you need to vent? We do all of these things. But then when we're worried about somebody with a mental illness or going through a depressive state or whatever, that's their problem. And we seem to be more standoffish and things. And so obviously this platform is about, okay, how can we look out for each other? How can we step in? And I remember you talking a lot during that time. You said that same thing. I feel like I'm screaming and no one is helping. What were some of the ways that you felt like you were screaming that you needed help that no one was seeing?
So I had, the job that you and I worked together at. I was still working there, and it's a very stressful job during busy season. And I kept, telling people I needed help. I needed help with the workload. I needed help with, him. I was open with my coworkers and my bosses about the situation that was going on. And it was just nobody really cared. Nobody, suck it up and get your job done kind of thing. And it's just I was drowning, far beyond drowning. It was I was drowning, and I'm trying to help myself and him and my children. And it's he's pushing me down, purposely trying to drown me. It was just a lot. I actually ended up losing that job because of my my mental illness and having like an absolute breakdown because of it. It was during our busy season at Rush, and I'm sitting at my computer at 8:30 in the morning, and he comes in, left work early, and gets mad at me and starts screaming at me and ended up strangling me. So the police were there, and I'm, offline. And so I got in trouble for being offline and not working when I'm literally on the floor sobbing and the ambulance is checking me out. You know what I mean? Like, it was just stuff like that, that it was a blessing that I was let go from that job and that toxic environment. I feel like the past few years, I've really worked on cutting out the toxic people and the toxic situations out of my life. I no longer speak to my parents anymore because of it. I no longer speak to that soon to be ex-husband. And I don't really have any contact with the people at that job anymore either.
Mm-hmm. I do a lot of in speaking and everything, a lot of stuff that I specialty workshops or whatever are around supervising and like supervising with a mental health mindset and stuff like that. What you just said, if you are listening and you supervise people, please listen to this and listen to this story, because it overwhelmingly, over and over and over again, we spend the majority of our times at work or with the people at work if you're not remote. And that has such a huge impact on our mental health as well. And so, are there people absolutely that are driven to suicidal thoughts because of what's going on at work? Absolutely. And it sounds like it might have been a confounding factor with you, with what was going on personally, and then not be that human aspect not being appreciated at work as well. And so with supervisors specifically, and I may just do a whole episode on this, but with supervisors specifically, we have to recognize that our employees are people first. The idea that you leave everything that's going on in your personal life at the door when you come to work is obnoxious. That's not real life. That's not how it works. We have to love the whole human being and be there for the whole human being while also having expectations. And so I'm sorry that was the experience that you had. That's horrible at a time that you could have been shown empathy and been treated like a human. You weren't, and it made a situation worse. So I know I wasn't that person, but I wanted to say that to you.
And I've kind of taken, my experiences with that, and I've it's coming into my business of how to be a good employer in that aspect. So like, my ladies can have unlimited days off if they need it. Obviously they don't get paid. They just have to let me know. We have mental health days. Even my children, mainly my daughter, because she's like super into like, oh my gosh, I got a B, and freaking out. And so I tell her all the time, I'm like, your mental health is more important than your grades.
Yeah.
And if you need to take a mental health day, take a mental health day. Just allowing those allowances, not that she even uses it, but the fact that she knows that it's there gives a lot of comfort that she can take on the next day.
Yeah. I mean, I have worked for a variety of different employers. I have worked for she-devils, and I have worked for just amazing, amazing human beings and everything in between. I will say, in my current situation, this is the first time I have had a supervisor who, even just the leadership team in general, who at 100%, I got COVID like 2 weeks into my employment. I didn't have a sick day to my name. I didn't have a sick hour to my name, and I got COVID. And so the one most wonderful thing she did in that situation was, I know I'm supposed to care that you don't have any sick leave. I just don't. Would you just get better and then come back to work? That's like, just get better. Take as much time as you need, whatever. And I think we have this fear that if we supervise in that way, where we're very giving and open and loving and, flexible, that people are going to take advantage of us. So we have to rule with an iron fist. And I know we've gotten kind of off topic here, but I would go to the ends of the earth for this woman because of how she treats me. I try not to take sick time because she treats me so well. Like that, the loyalty that you build amongst the really good people, to me, is worth the risk of being taken advantage of. You're going to get taken advantage of. Yeah, of course. that somebody will game the system 100%. And in the meantime, you've built an army of really loyal people that are good at their job, your productivity has just gone up, skyrocketed and everything. It's okay. So anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I feel like, especially in the business that you have too, that probably really goes far with those ladies. So, I just realized it kind of sounds like we're talking about a brothel. Do you want to say what you actually?
I own a maid service. And so most of my ladies are single moms. So our shift starts at 9 a.m. So they're able to drop their kids off at school, and we end no later than 3 so that they can pick them up. It's important to me because I have been a single mom for so long. I do have a man working for me now. He just got out of high school. So he goes to my church. So it's not a brothel.
Men can be sex workers too. Okay.
You're right. I apologize. Equal opportunity.
Oh, I was just thinking about how the replay was going to play on that. And I was like, we should probably clarify, because people are like, oh, so this is MATA. Okay. Yes. Okay. So when you were going through the dark time, when you were considering suicide, like you said, you had said, I feel like I'm screaming and no one's listening. And you were kind of getting hit from all sides. At the end of the day, what do you, if you could rewrite that, if you could wave the magic wand, how would you have liked that to go down instead? Like where you knew that you were being supported, or it was safe to advocate for yourself, or whatever.
I've actually thought about that question a lot. Like, how could I have been there for myself? How could I, whatever. And I don't think I'd change anything. I'm one of those people that, like, everything's a lesson. And I came out of it so much stronger in the sense of setting boundaries. That's a hard thing that I'm like just learning how to do, but I am killing it now. The reason why I'm attracted to men like that, because, angry father, you're going to have an angry man in your life forever. And now I've broken that. And then also, so my daughter was dating a young man who was very like needy and kind of controlling, and like messaged her a lot. Well, she told me one time that he like grabbed her arm and like pulled her one time, and it just got worse and worse. He started talking bad to her. And so about a month after my ex was arrested and out of the home, she came to me and she said, I'm going to break up with him because I'm seeing a lot of the same similarities as you and Andy. Mm. And she's like, and I deserve better than that. I saw you go through that and I deserve better than that. And right then, it's like I saw a generational curse being broken. You know what I mean? And I would go through that every day of my life for my daughter to never experience it. Mm. And then to be able to minister to women in the same situation and show them that you can still come out okay. That's worth it all to me. Healing my codependency. I've absolutely made leaps and bounds on who I am as a person. And I don't regret any of it. I don't regret falling in love with a man who didn't know how to love himself either. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I wish him the best, and I hope that he gets the help that he deserves, because I've definitely gotten the help that I needed.
That's beautiful. That's a really healthy way of looking at it as well. Because I mean, I in some of the things that I've gone through, people will ask me the same thing, if you could change anything about that, what would you do? And I it's hard for me to say I wouldn't change anything. But the things that I would change is so that other people weren't abused as well.
Yeah.
And if I had the opportunity to fix it to where somebody else didn't experience that same thing, maybe I would have done that. But it's kind of the same thing, if you have the opportunity to take your life lessons and turn that into hope for others, then why would I change anything, And then I also really relate to the meme that's like, things keep happening to make me stronger. I'm tired of being strong. I think I'm strong enough. World, you can stop, you know?
It's one of those things though, and I'm noticing all these different patterns in my life that keep popping up. Like I keep getting myself in the same situations, and it's because I haven't learned my lesson. You know what I mean? Like when you finally learn your lesson and it doesn't happen, it's because you learned your lesson.
You learned your lesson.
Whether it's having a savings, because when you know something's going to happen, you need the money. You know what I mean? Like it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to, this is kind of off what you're talking about, but I wanted to talk about something that really helped me. I've been through a lot of therapy in my life. And after this last situation, I started going back to therapy, and the therapist was like, your behavioral, what am I trying to say? Behavioral, oh my gosh.
Patterns?
You're like a cognitive behavioral skills. Like you're like,
oh, yeah.
All of that is good. Like you're handling everything, you're processing everything, like you're saying everything correctly. Like my head was right. But she just kept saying, go deeper. And I was like, I don't know what that means. Like, what do you mean go deeper?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, try EMDR therapy, which is like kind of like, in the subconscious area. Well, so I did that. And she said, I'm either really good at hiding things or there's nothing there. And so I was like, great. So now what? Like, what do I do? And so I really started focusing on like the mind-body connection and listening to my body. What is my body telling me? So that was probably the hardest thing about getting out of that relationship, is once I finally started to feel safe again, my body just hurt. Everything hurt. It was just absolutely incredible. Like what I had been stuck in fight or flight and starting to release it, all of those cues in my body were like, hey girl, we're in trouble. And so I kind of like started into a very, very basic place. And I feel like this is something that everybody can do. I started listening to my body cues. So if you're thirsty, drink water. A lot of times we're thirsty. You've got the thirst, but I'm so busy, I can't stop and take a sip of water. Take a sip of water.
Yeah.
If you have to pee, go pee.
Like,
especially like teachers and people. I mean, there was so many times when I was like, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this, and then I'll go pee. And it was just like, go pee. You know what I mean? Like, why are you holding this up? Girl, just go pee. And then another one was, if you're sitting in a position too long and your body starts getting uncomfortable, like move it. I don't know why, for whatever reason. I guess it was like part of the fight, flight, or freeze fawn thing is I would just stay in the same position and not move. I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but it was like, your body hurts, like move around. And just those 3 little things have really changed my relationship with myself and trusting myself. It's kind of helped build self-confidence because I know that I'm going to care for myself, even in those simple ways. And then you can move it up to working out and, doing like somatic stress release stuff out of your hips, because women hold trauma in their hips and then their necks and shoulders and stuff. So look that up. There was just a lot of things that I was able to like pull out of because I was hurting so bad and going to the chiropractor, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that, trying to take care of that aspect of it.
Yeah, that is a very real thing that happens, especially when you get out of a scary situation like that, or that time where you're constantly in fight or flight mode, right? Like it's just, I didn't realize it. I was in that from my previous job, and it never really let go. And so it turned into sleep issues, which I'd always had because I was always on call. And then when I wasn't on call anymore, I slept light as a feather, and anything would wake me up and I would have to I don't know. It was just, I get out of that, a super stressful situation or whatever. And then it's like the release happens, and you're right. It's like joints ache, muscles ache, everything's stiff. All of a sudden I've got a rib out of place or whatever. It's really hard. And then you mentioned EMDR, and I don't know if this happened to you, but I did EMDR because I had the same thing where it was like I had 2 different counselors who were like, we can keep going. I'm not saying this isn't healthy for you, but you're kind of ahead of the game. I don't know what else to do here. And I was like, okay, well, how do I get the nightmares to stop? And it was like, maybe you should do EMDR. So I did. And it was so helpful. I want to put that out there. It really did help with healing the trauma and taking the triggers from, like, you know, sobbing in my floor because I heard a kid was sexually abused, to now I'm super sad about it, but I'm not like having nightmares that night, you know. But it also broke my brain. Like, it is rewired now in a new way, and I am a new person who is a little bit more irritable than I was in the past.
Really?
And then when I talked to the psychiatrist, she was like, "Oh, yeah, that happens sometimes." Yeah. And I was like, should put that on the side effects. I'm just saying.
So I went to a sound bath with you, actually. That was like my second one. Ricky thought it was the stupidest thing in the world. But Ricky, there is a step after that called breath work.
Uh-huh.
Like, you're listening to, like, you know, some of the sounds and like subliminal messages and people talking positive and telling you to let go. And so it's all these breaths. So it's the sob breath pattern, like,
Uh-huh.
okay. So you do that for 45 minutes straight, and you literally are put into like a hallucinogenic, like
Wow.
crazy mind space. And that, it was like 10 years of therapy in an hour.
Really? Did you end up like sobbing, just like
Oh
therapy?
my gosh. Like, it wasn't like I was like crying. It was like just tears were just pouring out. Like, my face mask was all wet. Like, my pillow was wet. It was crazy. But I will say that the thing that my, you know, EMDR specialist said she thought I was either hiding or real, you know, whatever, it came out in that.
Yeah.
And I realized, because as a child, I had been molested and I didn't know it, but I always like felt maybe possibly, because I had been like sexually promiscuous. And then also, I would have this thing, which this really messed with my head. Like, I'm about to blow your mind. When I was getting ready to fall asleep, I would see like a man over me with like a dark beard. And I always thought that it was like my future husband, or if it was like Jesus or something. Like, I always had this like warm, loving, and comforting feeling. Well, in my breath work, that happened again, but I realized I was being molested. So it was like this whole thing. Like, I knew that it was somebody I was close to. I still don't know who it is, but it was definitely like this aha moment for me. Like, okay, like, now we've kind of recognized it. And I was able to like really like talk through it with myself, like have myself as a child and me as an adult, and go talk to this person and say, you're never going to hurt her again. And it
Yeah.
was just like this like very healing thing for me to be able to like process it. So that was my breathwork experience. And everyone that I've done has been absolutely like transformative.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That makes me want to try it, and also sounds super scary because, you know,
Yeah.
I'm all about everybody should feel their feelings. I do. And then I have this internal part of me that like really fights it. But when it comes to me, and I'm like, I don't really feel like a crying today. So I'm going to protect myself a little bit. So obviously I still have some more work to do.
Yeah, that's a defense mechanism for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that was really helpful. You're right. It wasn't part of the plan at all, but that's super helpful. Thank you for bringing that up. And I don't know. There's a lot of people that listen to this podcast because they want to help others. And there's a lot of people who are looking for hope. And some people fall into both of those categories. So I like that we've touched on all of those things, because if you get the chance to know Nicole, you should. She's like salt of the earth human being.
Oh,
So I love that you're turning this into basically testimony and helping others. So be proud of yourself for that. So let's pretend that somebody is listening to this and they're in a very similar situation. What is your advice to them specifically?
that it can and it will get better. That the end, what you think is the end, is not the end. That ending your life is not the answer. I know that sometimes it feels like that's the only choice. A lot of times you have to make a conscious effort to actually pick yourself up and say, I am no longer standing for this. whether that means you're completely lonely. Okay, well, go out there, go sit at the coffee shop, make friends with an old person. Go to our local church. You'd be surprised. My church family has been my super support system. It's just stuff like that, like getting out there in the community. There's singles networking groups. There's business networking groups. There's all sorts of places for you to get social. And it's really one of those things. As humans, we were created to be social beings. We were created to be in tribes, and we've lost that in this this day and age. So try working on that.
Okay. Very good advice. I also want to make sure that if anybody here is in that situation, I know when I was helping my mom get out of a situation that was like this, domestic violence, I know she felt weak and she felt like she wasn't strong enough. And then like holding on to that shame and everything about how did I let myself get into this situation? And I want to, like, as somebody who's witnessed it, and I know you're sitting here and you have been through this as well. They're really good. Abusers are really good at tricking you. It's part of the process. So do not feel duped, because there's still one of my abusers is still running through the community, still abusing others, still getting accused, still getting arrested, and has everybody fooled that I don't know why this keeps happening. They're such a good person. That's how good they are at convincing you. So there is no shame to be had. And you are living through something that most people couldn't imagine. You're already strong as fuck. So do not worry about not being strong enough, because you are already leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the rest of society. So
Well, that was definitely my thing too. Was I'm a really good read on people. Like my intuition is spot on, and I can spot somebody fake from a mile away. And he hit me like a ton of bricks.
yeah.
I thought he was the sweetest person and kind and had such a loving heart. And he went to church regularly, so that was like a weird thing for me. You're gonna try to choke me out on a Saturday night and expect us all to go to church on Sunday. So that was a hard thing to try to process too.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. And that was the thing too, is I didn't trust my intuition and my gut anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they want to do that. They
Mm-hmm.
want you to not trust yourself. That's the whole point.
Yep.
They need you to be reliant on them. Okay, so you have spoken directly to the person who may be experiencing this. What would you, from a survivor standpoint, what would you say to somebody who suspects that their friend is going through something like this?
I had so many people just keep telling me, just get out, just leave him, just kick him out. Like, it's not that easy. So that's definitely something I wouldn't say. I would definitely tell people that I'm here for you. They will leave when they're ready to leave. It'll be a whole bunch of things that will happen, and they'll finally realize it. But I also want to give this piece of advice to someone who's suggesting that. Go get them a journal and some pretty pens and say, start writing down what's happening. Keep it in your notes, in your phone, something. That was big for me because I realized how much it was.
Mm-hmm.
Because our brains convince us to forget a lot of the negative things when there's a lot of positive. It's this, reward cycle that you get in the abusive situation. And so seeing it on paper, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. That definitely was my thing. It was actually an exercise that I was given from a book called Forgiving What You Cannot Forget.
Mm.
You were supposed to write all of the things down on a note card of things that had happened that you need to forgive them for. So after I'm like this far into note cards, I'm like, maybe I should reevaluate this whole situation.
Yeah.
That was kind of like my eye-opening experience of feeling like I'm going to run out of cards. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even scratching the surface yet. And those were just the things that I was holding on to, not the little things. You know what I mean?
So that's a really good point. And it made me think of something like, while you and I were working together, we traveled together, we were on the phone daily at points. And I got to witness the kind of roller coaster, right? It was like he did something horrible. Now he's fantastic and loving, and oh my gosh, everything's going really great. And it was like a roller coaster there. But I did witness where it would be like, 1 week it was horrible and you didn't know what to do and just trying to get you through that moment. And then the next week it was, he is so sweet. He's just texting me how much he loves me. He's thinking of whatever, I remember us being in San Diego, I think. And he was just being amazing at that point. And I even got hopeful for you as well. Cause I was like, okay, maybe it's turning around. Okay. And then, we'd hit the next dip. So for that situation, and please, you have full permission to say, yeah, Ricky actually could have done this differently. I don't want it to seem like you're going to hurt my feelings, because it's a learning process for everybody. But in that situation where I was kind of watching the ride, the waves and everything, was there anything that I specifically could have done differently that would have helped you through that?
Not really. If anything, you were more helpful than anybody else because you were just listening and you were non-judgmental. That's the main thing is, I can forgive someone because I love them, but it's hard for somebody else to forgive them because they remember all the bad stuff. But no, I mean, you did everything perfectly. It's one of those things that it's like, you have to make the decision yourself. I mean, it's an addiction. It's an addiction to the roller coaster. It's an addiction to the lack of self-love. That's what I call codependency, is a lack of self-love. And you really do have to break it, just like an addiction. That's just kind of how you think of it, because it's just like drugs. I mean, you have your highs and then you get your lows and then you get your high again and it feels great. And, it's all chemicals in our brain. So there's really not a lot that you can do as a person, but be there and listen and be non-judgmental.
Okay. And I want to hit on that non-judgmental thing too, because I know when we're doing stuff, every person has self-destructive behaviors. Like, we all do something stupid that's not for our highest and best good. And we just continue to do it for whatever reason. But having somebody to openly talk to and know that this person's not going to judge me. They're going to be like, why are you still with him? But all that stuff. If I would have done that for you, I feel like that would have just made me an unsafe person to talk to.
I would have
shut down. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wouldn't have shared with you.
I started laughing at an inappropriate time there because this thought popped into my head. You said, because you remember all that bad stuff, but I was trying to forget it. When I stayed the night with you, I was prepared to kill him if he tried anything that night.
I probably would have been grateful.
I was like, I got my taser right here.
I think he did start crap that night. He was just quiet.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh.
Because I remember waking up and thinking, seeing how much shame and hoping that you didn't hear it.
Oh, no, I definitely didn't hear anything. I was like, oh, okay, well, we're doing okay right now. So, well, that bums me out because I was ready to kill him. So, I
should have sent out the bat signal.
Yeah, you should have. We should have had a code word. That's what we should have had, a code word. Hey, Ricky, I need you to come down here and tase his ass. I would have. All right. So we're kind of coming up at the end of our time, and I wanted to give you just the opportunity to anything that's on your heart that you want to share with the audience around domestic violence, mental health, anything like that.
Just mainly that tomorrow's a new day and that you are the one who's in control of your future. Take control of it and keep on moving, because it does get better and it does get easier. Life is not meant to be rainbows and butterflies. You're here to learn lessons. I feel like that's our true purpose in life, is to become better humans and be better people. And everything is given to you for a reason. So figure out what that reason is and heal from it.
I agree 100%. Actually, it's written back here. Your story isn't over. It's on the shirts on my website and everything. Your story isn't over. This doesn't define you. This isn't the end of your chapters. This is you're in the middle of it. So get to working on being the author of your own story and writing a happier ending. So, and I'm so proud of you. I want to say that publicly. I am so proud of you because, girl, you did the thing. So it's wonderful to see you happy and at peace and working on yourself. No one deserves it more than you. So,
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you.
what a sweet soul that Nicole is. I'm so thankful to have her as my friend. I want to give you a couple of statistics really fast so that you can understand the gravity of the situation when your friends or family are going through something like this. Over 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men in the US have experienced rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Survivors are 3 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts and 4 times more likely to attempt suicide. So if this episode spoke to you or you know anybody that it would help, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Liking and subscribing helps us get this message to more people, and sharing it brings the message to those who need it but might not be able to find us on their own. So helping us build the audience is what we're going for here. And honestly, the chances are, with those type of statistics, you know someone going through this, but they may not have told you or you may not suspect it. So this is one of those powerful passive ways to intervene with suicide. It's just naturally getting information out there that somebody may stumble across that really helps them out. And I know I was really moved by her story, and I know others will as well. If you or someone you know is going through domestic violence, there is help out there. I would like you to visit www.thehotline.org. I will also link that in the show notes to get more resources. You can chat with somebody, or you can find out more about how to help somebody else in this situation. The website does have a quick exit option for your safety. You can also call 1-800-799-SAFE, SAFE, or you can text the word START to 88788, and you can chat with somebody via text. In next week's episode, we are going to build on parts of this conversation by discussing what it means to supervise with a mental health mindset. Now, this is one of my most popular workshop titles, and this will be sort of a mini version of that. But we will learn a little bit about how to avoid pitfalls, how to support employees, and end up actually saving a lot of money in the process. And who knows, maybe saving a life. So tune in then so we can continue to learn how to intervene with ease.